Welcome to Club Soda's Mindful Drinking Festival. We're online, global, and as always, absolutely free. Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm one of the co-founders of Club Soda.
And I'm Laura, the other co-founder of Club Soda. We help you change your drinking in ways that help you live well. So whether you're looking to cut down, stop for a bit, or quit, you can find what you need from podcasts and books and courses on joinclubsoda.com. This festival, we've brought you an amazing lineup from over 100 people from across the world.
And our programme this time really is global.
Every day starts down under with me, Sarah. As well as organising the festival in Australia, I spend my time looking for alcohol-free alternatives and tips for people who choose not to drink, but who still want to live a social, fun and adventurous life.
And I'll be wrapping up each day here in the States. I'm Amanda, your US festival host and coordinator, and I'm also a mindset coach who helps women change their relationship with alcohol so that they can start living their most authentic life.
Each day with a rolling programme of inspirational panels, conversations, social events, and opportunities to discover new low and low alcohol drinks.
So whether you want inspiration to change your drinking,
Or to connect with other people,
or you want to discover and enjoy a new low and no alcohol drink,
The Mindful Drinking Festival is for you.
cheers!
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 cheers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hi. We are starting our sober dating and relationships panel tonight. I'm so excited. My name is Tricia Lewis. I'm the moderator, and we've got one of our festival hosts here tonight. We've got Amanda, and we've got Richie Crowley. And we're going to talk tonight. We're going to get a his and a hers perspective all about sober dating and relationships. I host the Recovery Happy Hour podcast, and sober dating is the #1 topic that I get asked about. So I'm so excited to bring this to you all. Before we get started, actually, Amanda, would you just tell us real quick how old you are and what's your favorite thing to do on a date?
Oh, so I'm 34 and my favorite date, hands down, is a walking date. I live in Austin, Texas, so the weather is pretty good all year around. And I love to go on a date where you can just like get out and move your body a little bit and not be like cramped down at a little table.
Love that. Richie, how about you? How old are you and what's your favorite thing to do on a date?
I am 29 years old, and my top date would be destination bike riding, meaning it's just a bike ride, but there's a reason for it. You know, maybe it's going to get guacamole, maybe it's going to see a pier, maybe it's going to the ocean. We're going somewhere, there's a destination in mind, and then you can get outside and be active together too.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's dig right into this. And real quick, for whoever's watching, I'm not this cool. I do have an eye injury though, so bear with the sunglasses. It's just how we're rolling tonight. Life throws you curveballs. You just, you know what? You put on glasses and you deal with it. My first question for both of you, and Amanda, we'll go ahead and run this with you going first, if you don't mind,
sure.
for each answer. But how long did you wait before you started dating, or when did you know that you were ready?
You know, I probably started dating a little bit before I would recommend to anyone. I started my sobriety journey with a 90-day kind of break, what I thought was a break from alcohol, which turned to a full-on breakup. And I probably started going out on dates, maybe somewhere in the 60 to 70-day range. And I learned a lot, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And I stumbled a lot, which was really fun for other people. But I think that ultimately what I ended up doing is after that period, I ended up pausing and just taking some time to date myself, because you really underestimate how little you know who you are and what you want and what you desire and deserve until you take some time to just get to know yourself again.
Great answer. That's so true. Richie, how about you?
So from day one, when I first tried to get sober, I put myself back in environments to be dating. And I would say dating and thinking I was ready is the reason why it took me 4 attempts to kind of get my arms around this life of abstinence and this life of sobriety. Once it started being successful for me, it was about 4.5 months in, around mid-April of that year, when I started dating and had confidence and was comfortable announcing and introducing myself as, hey, I'm sober, I don't drink, and we're cool with that. Let's go.
I love it. You know, when I got sober, Amanda, just like you, I started dating pretty early on, but I treated it like practice. I figured I was going to start before I was ready because I knew I was going to mess things up. So why not just do it with people I wasn't really that interested in?
Yeah,
Terrible.
for sure.
Terrible. But hey, it worked for me at the time, you know?
Yeah, you just have to learn and you embrace the stumbling blocks.
Yeah, the only way you learn how to do things is to do them, you know? You know, the one of the first questions that people like to ask on the podcast is, did you put sober in your dating profile? Amanda?
You know, I did not. I have made the conscious choice. And now there's, you know, back then, which was only like 3.5 years ago, you had room for your profile was your bio on dating apps. And that it didn't give you a lot of space. So I chose not to list that there because it wasn't like primed to my identity. Now most of the dating apps offer like an option where you can check like alcohol, no, but that wasn't there before. So I chose not to use the very small character count that I had to talk about the fact that I didn't drink because I didn't want to, I was still very, first of all, insecure in it. And two, I didn't want to have anyone judge me or X-nay me as someone who wasn't cool enough to date because of that, because I knew I was cool enough. So I figured what I would do is just introduce it early on in the process. And I learned how to do that. And I'll just wait until it's like the right time to talk about it. But I learned how to not do that very, in a lot of different ways. Actually, let me just tell you what happened. I originally started out not putting it in my profile and also not talking about it in the messaging at first. And I thought, well, this is okay. I'll just go on dates and I won't drink and no one will ask me any questions, or maybe I'll introduce it when I get there. And my very first sober date, I learned the lesson so hard. I get to the bar and the guy says, oh, hey, I have an open tab. Just go grab whatever you want. So I go up to the bar and I get a sparkling water, a Topo Chico, and I come back to the table and he looks at me and he looks at the drink and he's like, oh, you don't drink? Are you like super Christian or something? And I was horrified. That was like the worst question anyone could ask. So in that moment, I like navigated every single stumbling block you could, like the stumbling block of having to talk about being alcohol free, also being judged for it. And not that there's anything wrong with being super Christian, but the way he said it, clearly he assumed it was not a positive path. And so I learned then that you needed to introduce it before you show up on the date. I never saw him again. If you were wondering, we are not in love. And that's not true. I have run into him a couple of times, but I don't think he remembers what a bad impression he made on me. And from then I like tested the waters of, okay, maybe I don't say it, but I introduce it immediately when I get there. Still not the right way. The best thing to do is, from my perspective, was to wait until you got into short conversation and then introduce it very quickly via text, or if you're on a voice conversation, that way someone, if they're not a match for you, you're not going to go waste your time meeting up on them like I did and get interrogated about your religious standpoints.
Right. Yeah. I think we learn eventually that it ends up being a great filter, you know, for people that may not be the best fit for us. It's just, you know, it's instant though.
Yep. Yes.
Richie, how about you? Did you put that you were sober on your dating profile?
I didn't. And for me, my first year of sobriety was a private experience to public. When I was going on dates, I was self-conscious of telling a person because I thought, hey, they're going to be interested in me until this point. So I would tell them maybe an hour before, thinking I was like, there's no way, like this is too small of a window for them to back out of this date. Like if we're supposed to meet up at 8 and at 7:07, I'm like, yeah, let's meet here. Hey, just so you know, I don't drink, so we can like do this after. And like, I felt like I had to compensate and be like, but there's going to be something else super exciting happening. We're going to go here after. I wish I had, Amanda, your advice to say, hey, just put it out in the open. And Tricia, as you say, this test and this compatibility assessment where it's like, hey, this is who I am. You know, you see my appearance on an app and you see my bio, and now you can just be like, okay, he drinks or he doesn't drink. She drinks or she doesn't drink from the moment, just because, you know, we're in vulnerable positions when we're meeting new people, and like we have to be comfortable exposing ourselves and who we truly are. So the sooner we can do that and be accepted for it, it can make for a more sustainable and a better first experience with that person. So I wish I had, I wish I wasn't self-conscious of it. I wish I didn't think it was a crutch, because by the time I got comfortable being public about my sobriety, I was in a relationship, and now I have like this bit of envy or jealousy. I was like, damn, I know the sobriety is such a superpower, and what would it have been like to introduce that, or to go into a first impression date with that confidence that I now feel today. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think a big part of that too is how we present present this information to that person. Like, is it a sad confession? Like, oh, I'm so broken. Here's this problem. Will you still have me? Or is it like, oh, by the way, I don't drink, so you can pick whatever bar you want, because I'm going to be able to find what I want anywhere. Like it's no big deal. I find that the tone of how you even say it sometimes can be a game changer, but it's different for everyone. Tell me, like, what activity do you suggest for a date? When I was drinking, I was like, how in the world do you date without drinking? We all feel this way. Like, they're like, what could you possibly do with the stranger? Tell us what you can possibly do with a stranger, Amanda.
Yeah. So I've actually become a little more rigid in this since I first started out. When I first started dating, I was trying to still prove that I could be like the hip Carrie Bradshaw that was going to the bars, and I just wasn't drinking. And then I realized, like, wait a second, if I have to be vulnerable and be completely sober, dude, you need to do that too. I don't care if that's your MO every time, but I'm a fun person. I believe in myself to sustain this date, and I want you to believe in me too, and I believe in you. So I at first started to, like, I would go out on dates where the guy like could drink, I guess. And then I realized that's not fulfilling for me. It makes no sense. Like, I'm not trying to punish him, but I want to challenge him to be better. So I would start suggesting dates to coffee shops. I would ask for morning dates instead of afternoon or evening dates. I would ask for dates, like I said, on a trail or a nature walk. But I actually have a really, really firm 3-date rule about what is acceptable. And I think this goes for anyone, whether you're sober or not, that just helps you build connection. But I think on the first 3 dates, you can't drink. Neither of you can drink because it just dilutes the conversation and dilutes the situation. And the first 3 dates also have to be to a place where you can actually hear each other and have conversation. So that's like no bar, no movies, no comedy show. You can't be in a place that's overly stimulated because you just can't get to know each other. You don't get to have that connection one-on-one where you get to decide, like, hey, do I even want to see this person again? And that's why I think my number one preferred date is a walking date, because there's other stimulation you get by moving your body than what you would be at in a bar where there's music everywhere. And so, I mean, those are my top 2. If I am asked to plan a date, or actually, let me give this piece of advice too. If a guy invited me to a bar to meet for drinks, instead of just saying no, I found really quickly that it was then my responsibility to say, actually, I don't drink. Would you go for coffee, or would you go for a walk? Because I was cutting them off at the knees in a conversation they weren't prepared to have. So if I wanted to do something different than what they recommended, I always had these 2, the coffee date and the walking date, in my back pocket. That way I could at least like give a little if I was going to go outside of the cultural boundary of not meeting for drinks. So that's my main like date prep.
Right. Yeah. We have an acronym for that at work. IPORS, identify the problem, own the resolution. Like, yeah, exactly. If it's not working for you, like, have something ready, as an alternative. And by the way, for everybody who's watching, if you want to chime in with any questions, you can type them into the chat. I'd love to have our guests answer them for you. So do not be shy. Richie, how about you? Tell me about some good first sober date activities.
So I would say sober dating is an amusement park for a creative person, because dating with alcohol, there's only so many things you can do. You have to go to a place that sells it. You have to be in a certain place that you can drink it if you're outside in public. You can't drive a boat. You can't drive a car. You probably can't go into a museum. It's like there's a lot of restrictions. So when you take that away, it's an endless opportunity. You can have the walking date, the bike riding, the museum, You can do the more experiential. You can also like download the list of dates from like a thrill list. Hey, 20 best dates to do in Austin today. Check them all off. You can even get crazier that. Be like, hey, listen, here's what we're going to do today. Meet me at noon. Do you like cake? Great. I like cake too. We're going to go find the 5 best pieces of cake in this city. And it becomes an adventure. Create a scavenger hunt. It's like you truly can do anything. For me, like I love food-based dating. I like day dating. I do like physical activity dating. I know that's another level just of comfort. If I'm going to go out and be like, oh, I'm going to go so hard at this bike ride or this rock climb, maybe that's not the best first date for someone who doesn't have an interest in that. But I think places where it's safe for all people, it's not asking them to do anything crazy or anything beyond their capability physically. But yeah, I really think it's a blank canvas, because abstinence and not alcohol is welcome everywhere. Alcohol is only welcome some places. So start thinking of it kind of like conversely there.
Right. No, that's true. There are so many great dates I have been on while sober for that reason, because sitting in a bar gets boring. And even though, just like with sobriety in general, in our old lives, we're just used to it this one way, right? And we can't imagine it being any different, because that's just what we don't know that. And then once you know it and experience it, you're like, this is so much better. But you have to try it first and experience it first.
And if I can add something too,
yeah,
your dating portfolio is ever expanded, because if you're going to go on a date and you're going to be drinking, you have a rough estimate of what that bill is going to be. You're like, it's probably, okay, $15 cut. It's probably going to be a $70, $80 first date if we don't get food. You have $70 or $80 to go spend on something else. Maybe each person a $20 bill and go into a thrift shop and say, find the craziest shirt you can. It's a tactical standpoint too. It's exciting.
It's so great. That's key. I'm like getting all these ideas. I'm like going to tell my 3-year relationship, like, guess what we're doing this weekend?
The cake date. I love that. Like, I'm all about the testing cake date.
So into the cake date. That is so, so good. So here's a tough one. This is getting more into like the uglier side of sober dating. How do you handle it if somebody says, I can't date you because you don't drink? Because that's happened to me before. Has that happened to either one of you, Amanda?
I don't think so. I've probably gotten ghosted on the app side before, where someone is like, oh, but I don't know. Like, they never tell me necessarily, or they'll indicate it to me. They're like, oh, you don't drink ever. And when they say that, I'm just like, you know what? It never actually hurt my feelings, I don't think, because I'm like, you're not for me. I've never had someone specifically say that, which is really lucky, but it could happen. Like, you're living proof of that for sure.
Richie, how about you?
Yeah, the first 2 times that happened were on dates, and my response, I was weak to my commitment to myself, and I wanted this person to like me. I thought the only way they were going to like me is if I asked the waiter to come back and order tequila shots, and we ended up doing tequila shots. And the night progressive, where I knew it would progress, I didn't want to, and it ends up with me in a cab home feeling regret at 9:30 in the morning, and then just wasting away, like sitting in the bottom of a shower, just crying and being like, why? Again, like, why was I not just strong enough and confident in myself enough to say no and watch what happens next? I never took the risk to say, what happens if I stick to my commitment here and say, you know what? No, I'm not going to drink on this date. Okay, worst thing that happens is that person would stand up and say, okay, I'm out of here. Great. That saved you a lot of toxicity in a relationship if that happened. But yeah, the first 2 times I honestly wasn't strong enough to, and just drowned it with tequila, and then went on and had the night.
When we date, it's like we want to get to know somebody better. We want them to get to know us. And it's only fair that we show who we are, the whole picture, because we want to know who they are. Like, we don't want them to hide themselves from something, important from us, only to find out later and be surprised, and it's a total deal breaker. So I just remember telling myself in the beginning, like, why am I hiding this? Like, eventually they're gonna find out. Like, I want them to know early on. So it becomes a really interesting exercise in just like self-esteem, like those things, those nervous things that you used to do in dating that you'd cover up with a few glasses of wine that you have to, face head on in sobriety.
What that does is like it builds this foundation. A relationship is then built on a foundation of distrust and selective information revealments of saying, not ready to tell them, okay, not this. And, for some things, yes, but there are important parts. If it's your identity, sobriety is so much part of someone's identity. And in a dating culture is such an important part of it to say, okay, is it going to be a non-drinking date or a drinking date? Throughout my experience, I always thought about going through college and the responsibility that I was educated on for an individual that would test positive for an STI or an STD, that they have that responsibility to tell a partner up front. And going through sobriety, I was like, you know what, it's a parallel type of conversation, but I was like, you know what, let me be bold enough and just tell this person up front. So there's nothing that happens a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Like, I'm not going to just because I want to have an experience with this person and have a fear of telling them, let me just delay this 3 or 4 days because I know it's inevitable. It's like, that just sets myself up to be hurt 3 or 4 days from now or a week from now or weeks from now.
Yeah, that's so key. That's so key. I'm glad that you brought that up. I don't know why this keeps coming to my head, but like, raise your hand if dating sober means you've never accidentally ended up in a 6-month-long relationship. Like, that quit happening for me. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that quit happening when I stopped getting wasted on dates. Is like, 3 months, and I wasn't like, God, I don't even like you. Let's talk about a little bit more on the relationship side of things. That's actually a great segue. What is the biggest difference in your relationships when you were dating and when you were drinking and when the other person was drinking, if they did, mm-hmm. and you sobriety and dating somebody who's not watching you actively drink all the time? Tell me the top. I know there's a ton of them. Bear with me here. Give me the top 3 biggest differences.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, I think the top 2, I'll have to think on the third, but is vulnerability and intimacy. And one of the reasons I started this journey of sobriety is I came out of a really tumultuous relationship that was on again, off again, where every single serious conversation that we had to have was had drinking, because all we did Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was party. And it seemed really fun and glamorous at the time. But then when I realized that we'd never been able to have true, even though we cared about each other, we never had been able to have true human connection void of drinking. And it was just really hard. And that it made the relationship really tragic. And so then when I was kind of starting to get the little nudge that I wanted to stop drinking, I remember I was dating this guy who was a little older and sophisticated, and I really, really respected him and liked him because he had that air of the Mr. Big, right, from Sex and the City. And I remember him telling me, Amanda, I feel like you're being very guarded with me. I don't feel like you're being very vulnerable. And it was such a punch to the gut, because I thought I was trying to be so very sophisticated, but I was putting on airs because I was completely out of touch with the person who I was at my core, because I'd been spending the last decade, living in this persona that was the party girl Amanda, and then trying to show up as a perfect employee and the perfect friend during my 9 to 5 on the week. And I really had little sense of who I was and what I liked and what I wanted to be in this world, because I spent all of my time diluting myself. And so it was that comment that it didn't insult me at all. It was just whoa, that's interesting. Let me find out about that. So I'm buy everything Brene Brown has ever written, step 1. And then, I enrolled in therapy, and I asked my therapist, I said, hey, do you think I should quit drinking? And this is important, because she actually said, no, I don't think so. Like, you don't have a problem. So I think you're drinking about the same as everyone else. And that detoured me for a while until I realized, like, no, there's something here. And I want to experience what that vulnerability he was seeking. I want to experience that in a relationship. So every relationship I've had since then, be it short-lived or long, has just had a deeper sense of connection, a deeper sense of truth. It's rooted in who I am as a person, not me trying to be someone who I think they want me to be. And yeah, so I guess authenticity is the third thing. So vulnerability, whatever the second thing I said was, and authenticity. It's just such a deeper sense of connection that you get. And even if that person is not your person, you actually get the opportunity to know that sooner rather than later, because you get to connect with your emotional centers and feel every feeling. You're not numbing it out or trying to make something work, or, waiting until you're drunk enough to ask them something that you want to know. It just is rooted in truth. And it's just so much more beautiful. I just can't say enough. Is it hard? Yeah, absolutely. But it's a hell of a lot easier than trying to navigate a relationship where you're both like semi-diluted the entire time.
Right. Yeah. It's also a lot easier than constantly like messing up, doing things you regret, having to go back and repair them and then try to start over again. Like, that's exhausting.
Yes. Yeah. Or having conversations and having to rehab them because you were drunk and you don't know what you said or if they remember.
Yes. Yeah. I started that club right here.
Mm-hmm.
Richie, how about you? What are some of the biggest differences between sober relationships and drinking relationships?
So my entire response will be kind of fluid and they lead into each other. The first is the difference is what the foundation of the relationship was. When I was drinking and using drugs, the foundation of that relationship was partying. It was drinking and doing drugs. Who we are as individuals comes second. So now when dating sober and in a relationship sober, that relationship was built off of sharing intimacy, showing who I am, and having this increased communication. That increased communication has carried over into a relationship where everything is confronted right away. If someone is agitated at something, upset about something, celebrating something, like it comes out right away. We don't rely on a substance to give us the courage to bring something up. When I was drinking, a lot of that bring something up came into suspicion from me, accusing a partner, be like, you were talking to that guy. It's like, no, I'm just drunk off my ass at 1 a.m. and she's talking to a friend. Like, this is not our cause for a fight right now. And like so many stupid arguments. The one additional piece is being in a relationship with someone without alcohol has inadvertently strengthened my relationship with my parents. And I include that like a collective relationship between myself, my partner, and my parents. Because when it was me, 25 years old, dating a 24-year-old girl, drugs, alcohol, going out to dinner with my parents was not as fun. Going to visit my parents was not as fun because they want to go to bed at 9. It's like, well, what are we going to do on Cape Cod? What are we going to do at the restaurant now? I was like, well, we're going to go embarrass ourselves and do something stupid. Now it's on that same page, and it's allowed me to have this second relationship with my parents where it's like we're more peers and we're more friends, and bringing a partner into that is such a delight.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Actually, can I add something to that really quick too?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Richie, struck me in a reminder that I was, as a drinker who was dating, incredibly insecure and paranoid, and always like being very judgmental and comparative. I mean, of course, most of those interactions are done out at a bar, but I always, had this guy who I liked, and I was watching him watch some other girl, and I was getting, my sense of self-worth and the level of jealousy that I felt towards other people and competition that I felt towards other people was very, very, very high. And then of course you would drink. So then you have more courage to like be a little more flirtatious or take up more space in the room, to where, of course, then that guy would notice you, but probably not be interested because you're not showing that you're wife material with whatever actions you're doing. But that, I mean, I've done a lot of self-work, as I know we all have self-work through my sobriety. But I can tell you that the woman who I am in going into a room as a single woman is so on the opposite end of the spectrum in confidence. I know that I am a powerful, intelligent, capable woman, and that I have a superpower within me that most of the girls in this room do not have. And that is the fact that I am whole and confident and do not need alcohol to show up in this room, do not need alcohol to be fun. And that might sound a little cocky in some scenes, but I'm just rooted in it. And I have this like air of confidence and sureness in myself that I did not have before at all.
Yeah, that's definitely a sobriety superpower that like we all benefit from. Richie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to respond. So Amanda, you talked about how alcohol would propel you into this more louder, taking up more space to get noticed.
Yep.
But I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, the person who you say you are now, the one who's like, I go in there and know that I'm a strong, independent, badass woman with confidence. There's loudness to that. And it's like, that's being noticed. It's like, I bet if we walked into a room and there was, you walked in and then a drunk woman or a drunk guy walked in, it's like more people would be aware that you're in that room because of how you're carrying yourself. You're in that space and it's like, oh shit, she's here.
Yeah.
And it's something else. I had it backwards too. Like I thought I needed to be the peacock and the exhibitionist to get attention. And now it's like, I can just roll in there, be myself, be quiet. And it's like, you can feel eyes on. It's like, what is this? Why is this person doing something that other people aren't doing so confidently?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that's
that superpower you talk about.
Yeah, you have a magnetism.
Yeah, and that's one of those surprises that you get when you get sober, when you realize you had it all wrong. You know, you thought you were supposed to be a certain way. And then it turns out the opposite brought you so much more in return. Again, we don't figure it out until we try it and get there. We have a question from the audience. Amanda, someone wants to know which Brene Brown book that you read that you would recommend to read first to help on the journey.
First.
Yeah.
So this would probably be her first one. I think it's The Power of Vulnerability. And then, I mean, everything she's written is brilliant, but that's like the one that I really kicked off with because vulnerability was my issue.
It's a lot of our issue.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's watching, again, we would love to answer your questions. So you're welcome to type them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. We only have another 10 minutes or so. So by all means, get them in. How about nerves before a first date? You know, I was really, really good at pre-gaming before I went on to the date, like actually made it to the date, you know, because, you know, you're so nervous, you know, because life is hard and a date is hard and you need to settle your nerves. And, you know, it turns out nerves aren't a bad thing, that just like you have different feelings that you feel as you live your life as a human being. What do you do now? Like when you get jitters before a date, before you're meeting a stranger, any tips on how to deal with that?
Oh yeah, man. I'm super woo. So I would probably sit down and do a meditation and just try and set the intention of what I want this date to feel like and ask the powers that are above me or around me or whomever, whatever you might prescribe to like, just help me to show up as my best self. And so my practice is just to get really grounded. And that's always served me really well.
Richie, how about you?
Yeah, I'll echo that. Meditation is definitely like an in the moment type thing. And to expand on that, sobriety is, you know, something we choose to opt into every single day. And that decision itself is an exercise in preparing you for meeting a stranger for the first time, for being in a stressful environment, for being at a family gathering, for anything that's going to come. So it's one of those things where it's like you get more and more confident as it goes and like put those reps in, not to make it be like a super just like, hey, it's exercise. Every day you get stronger. But it is something where like it becomes part of you and like you kind of have like that swagger that I'm just like visualizing what Amanda is probably like walking into a first date like and like it's like, yeah, it's just like it's definitely part of the meditation, but it's also like the weeks and months and years of work on yourself that just like, yeah, this comes with me. It's not a coat I put on today.
You know, I had a couple of things that I would do. The first one is kind of counterintuitive. And one is just to really sit in those feelings, because like those first date, like butterflies, you don't get those forever. You only get those before like a first date, before you first meet somebody. And what if it works out? You know, eventually like that kind of, you know, fades to a different level and you don't feel those nerves the same. It's a really unique feeling that feels uncomfortable, but it's actually a really like special limited time gift that I think it's really fun to kind of sit in. I also love the idea of like, I don't know if you guys have a song that you want to hear when you walk into a room. Like what is like, if you could hear any song as you walk into a room, like you just own the place, like what is that song? And I listen to that song before I go and meet the person.
Yes, I love that
song, like a baseball player going to bat or something, like the whole stadium. Oh, that's
yeah.
Yes.
Do you guys have a song that you wish would play when you walk into a room?
For a while, it was a song "Jungle" by the X Ambassadors, and anytime I'd go down an escalator, I would play it because it's like you're always hidden for a little bit on the escalator, and then they show you, and I try to time it perfectly and just like strut off. But yeah, I'll pick Jungle by X Ambassadors right now, and I'll
oh my gosh,
going down the escalator next week or something.
Yes. Oh man. I don't know that I would want to walk into the room for this, but anytime, I swear Whitney Houston is my like guardian angel, Whitney before everything bad happened to her, because one of my pump up songs is Dance with Somebody. And anytime I've been in a like rotten mood, Angel Whitney puts that song on for me wherever I'm at. So I have full faith that if I were going into a date where I didn't feel confident, it would literally be playing when I walk in the door. Like I know that's how good it is.
Oh, that's good. Mine is Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child. Like at the beginning, there's just like this dirty, nasty guitar, and I'm like, yes. So how about when your date drinks? You know, they're okay with you not drinking. You meet at a restaurant or somewhere that does serve alcohol. Like for instance, you know, you get to a point where you're comfortable in a bar with somebody and that's not a bother. What do you do if they drink? Like, or what if you do if they start to get drunk? Has that ever happened to you?
I've definitely been on a couple of dates where my date, before I kind of made the no drinking rule, my date did get a little drunk. And then I don't know, I just turned into a mom. I was like, okay, well, we're going to go now. Do you want me to go ahead and drive you home? And I think it was pretty clear then that there was like no interest. So, and before I thought he was like a really cute guy. And then it just turned to like, nah, I'm taking care of you now. So I might as well just be your sober ride home and wish you well.
That was nice of you.
Yeah, cute guy.
Richie, how about you?
Yeah, I'm cool with a couple drinks. But when it takes that turn and it's like, you know, the person's inebriated, they're drunk, I kind of zone into that, hey, our time and how we spend our time is such a precious investment that, you know, I'm just not going to waste it. So I'm probably a bit harsh and unforgiving on that side of it, but it's like when it gets there, I'm usually like, all right, let's wrap this up. You know, I'm out of here. It's just like, I don't want to be in this environment. I don't enjoy being around drunk people. I'm going to end this right now. And it's what I tell myself there is I'm like, no, Rich, like you don't need to be in this situation. Like, you know, keep your side of the street clean. This is part of it. Your time is important to you right now.
I hear that. I don't know that I've ever actually had that happen to me. I think I was pretty lucky, or maybe I was just a total buzzkill and nobody wanted to go out with me. I don't know.
But it happens with, you know, even outside of dating, like it could be like with a friend or something, or a family member or something. It's like, I'm across the board with that. It's just, hey, it's my time to go. And it's always important to have like your own transportation or your own out, and, you know, Uber and Lyft make it easy. But if I'm on a bike or a public transit, it's like making sure that I'm never reliant on another person for transportation at all. You know, I have a place to stay. It's like kind of setting up those variables before a date or before any type of outing gives you a stronger out where you're just like, all right, cool. I know exactly where I'm going, how I'm getting there. I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yep.
We've got a question from the audience. This is a good question. Wouldn't two sober people be a better match?
Good question. Well, I'm going to give a caveat to my answer, which is that I am what is known as maybe like spontaneously sober. I was a gray area drinker, so I did not use traditional recovery methods, which can be a benefit, but it also can be a little of a weird spot because it can just be it can be an odd spot to be in. So for me, because I come from a little bit of a different perspective. I don't mind if the person who I date drinks a little bit, as long as it's not to excess and frequent. And I've also found that, and I'm going to say this and know that there's no judgment, but it's just my personal experience. I've also gone on a few dates with people who are maybe a little too early in their recovery, traditionally sober, and are looking to me a little bit. I picked up like a savior energy, and I'm like, I'm not prepared for this. I don't know how to navigate this. I didn't navigate it myself, and I don't know how to navigate it with you or for you. And I didn't like kick that person to the curb, but at the same point, it caused a little bit of anxiety. Whereas you might think that sobriety is a gift. It is, absolutely, but I just didn't know how to handle the expectation they were kind of putting on me a little bit. And so I found that there's no right answer, honestly, is the thing. Like your person is your person, and they might be a drinker. They might be sober. They might be on your same path. They might be on a completely different path. But I think that the best thing to do is just test the waters and get out there and see what you want, because ultimately it's not necessarily what that person puts in their body or how they treat themselves, but who they are underneath. And you just have to go for the feeling that you have rather than, putting a characteristic on them. It's like saying that you want them to be a fireman or make like $150K a year. Ideally, yes, but not necessarily. And then I see down here too, gray area drinker. So that is someone who's not drinking in the black or white areas. So you're not drinking like every now and again, here and there at a wedding, I have a glass of champagne, but you're also not
drinking
to the point that you
alcoholically.
need. Right, drinking alcoholically. And so you're kind of in that middle area, which actually is the largest percentage of drinkers. Most people drink in the gray area. So it's a really important phrase to be aware of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, we've just got a 2-minute warning, and we're going to need to wrap this up. So Richie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that before we call it a night.
Yeah, so I'll be quick on it. My current relationship, my partner is also sober. It's incredible. Highly recommend it if you can. But so like Amanda said, it's like there are factors of who your person is that you can't control. Mm-hmm. But what I have experienced is the amount of influence an individual sobriety can have on a partner. Where if the other person is a drinker, maybe even out of respect for you, they're like, I don't want to drink around you. Or maybe you give them permission in this confidence to say, shit, I actually was looking for a little bit more courage to drink a little bit less. And every time I'm going to commit to every time I'm with Richie, I'm not going to drink. More and more time we spend together, hey, we're just not drinking. It's like there's a bit of influence within a relationship. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do think it's like, it's great. Like being in a relationship with someone who doesn't drink is incredible. And it's probably why we're still together.
Mm-hmm. I happen to be in a relationship with a normal drinker. It works out great for us. Everyone's different. And also that, knowing where you are at in your own sobriety before you even dive into any of this is also key. Amanda and Richie, thank you so much for sitting down tonight, for sharing your experiences on dating and sober relationships. For everybody watching, you can look at the little, streamer below and find out where to follow them on social media, website, etc. You can also follow me or listen to the Recovery Happy Hour podcast. We do a couple of great episodes on gray area drinking. You can check those out. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, Tricia.
Thanks, everyone.